No, I'm good. Yeah.
We're live.
Brushing up on the news.
Yep.
Pledge, please.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the town board meeting, March 24th, 2022. Motion to open up the meeting. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right. First thing on the agenda is review and discuss the request by SPZ and Associates regarding pump station force main for the Service Young Grove subdivision. See attached. Oh, you see.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to stand here.
Yeah, just stand up here and just state your name for the record. Sorry,
Steve
Steve.
Esposito, Esposito Associates.
You can give him a mic, so we
Turn
can
yours on.
record it.
Good evening. We're here to, again, thank you for this opportunity to revisit the concept of the pump station force main for sewage works at Youngs Grove subdivision. The idea is we install a pump station, a wet well, and have a force main that's approximately 3 miles from the site to the village of Goshen, where it's a sewer service from the village that has currently has a plant that has capacity, permitted, and it's fully operational. So one of the alternatives that we studied through the secret process was the on-site wastewater treatment plant. And at the time, sewer was not available at Prairie Village.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I'm sorry.
No, we were not.
When were you doing this work?
Well, we started in 2007. So
Well, when the town board made the decision, it was
2013.
2013.
I just want to make sure that we got clarification on
Well, it wasn't available to us until
last year.
until 2013. You have a letter from the village that said that at that time they could provide us with capacity for 42,000 gallons a day sewer. The previous administration did not permit any outside users. So we went through the process. Once that opportunity became available, we prepared a supplemental environmental impact statement, reevaluating the pump station. It was rigorous review with the planning board. We also presented the alternatives to the DEC, the recon meeting, pre-application meeting with the department. You have on record that they were in favor of the pump station. That makes total sense to them. It was an existing plan and not issued a speedy permit that would be surface discharging into a small stream that's tributary to the Otter Kill. Small. So we came before this board, and again, in the planning board, you have the findings. They determined that it has a significantly less impact on land. O&M costs are significantly less, and growth with regards to growth inducement. We're going to size the pump station enforcement for our sewage and nobody else's sewage, and a treatment plant can always be expanded. So we think that in terms of growth inducement, the pump station enforcement is a much better solution to prevent that. And again, we also said that our petition the board to create item 1 for a town district, and if you a new district expansion of the existing district, suggesting AM Park did that, at that time for heritage as well. Or the other alternative for ownership would be a transportation corporation, and that still requires some town board authorization. So we still think that the best way to go is the town district. It makes sense if you expand the hand district, because you have 5 new residents to help pay for debt service, either existing or future, to help spread out the O&M costs throughout the district. And as same routing that we looked at past, down Chester Road, to Knoll Road, Chester Road, to the manhole at the top of Church Street, or South Church Street. Excuse me. We're proposing the same plan. We still think that economically, it's a more viable alternative in the long run. Capital cost wise, extensive cost analysis with Dennis Lindsay at the time, and the cost between plant package plant and pump station enforcement, we're just pretty much in line with each other. So it's not it's a big savings. We just think, it takes a significant amount more time and energy to run a plant than the pump station.
So we're talking 2013, we're talking about 9 years ago. So the first question to you is, we had extensive conversation, many meetings, a lot of analysis, a lot of data. And the decision at that time was that preferred sewer situation would be a plant on the site and not the transportation. After all the reviews. So the question to you now is, since then, what has changed that we can look at? What has changed in this whole proposal that we went over? If you tell me what's changed, maybe we can talk to our engineer and do a new analysis of anything new that would change our decision as to what we decided after. It was an intensive discussion on this thing. And I learned more about a transportation company at that time than I knew. So that being said, I do have other comments, but maybe you can explain what's new since our old decision. Station?
Essentially, so we still advocate, that this should be a town district. It's in the best interest of the town. It's in the best interest of the future residents of Youngsboro, as well as the part to the existing residents of Heritage, and that's still consistent. It's still relevant. We still think that the findings of your planning board, your experts, planning, one of them has the engineer with the health department. The DEC also recommended that this be the preferred alternative. It's still our preferred alternative. Right, and we also had a couple of work sessions to discuss this alternative, discussing this project with your engineer, your town operator, who also thought that the pump station enforcement was a reasonable alternative, trying to put a package plant, on site and having to maintain that. And it was his support that decided to revisit it and reply to the town. It's easy business.
Once again, we had a lot of input from all the different agencies. And after extensive review, it was the town board's decision that this would not be the best for the town. Some of the things that we saw at that time, now I don't have the minutes from those meetings. If we need to, we can pull them out again. But I don't want to reinvent the wheel or rehash something that we've hashed over, unless there was something new. And that was my main concern. If there was something new that I didn't know that we should explore, fine. If you're asking us 9 years later to relook at our decision on the same facts that we made the decision, I'm a little concerned, but I understand what you're trying to do. But still, the things that remain is, first of all, if there was something new, I'd ask you to put a lot more in the escrow account so that our engineer could look at it. But the facts, some of them still remain, that this is for the sole use of your developer. a 3-mile run. And there's a lot of land in between that could support other subdivisions. Well, they would have the same situation, but they can't use your transportation company. So the alternative would be for them is to ask us to put in another transportation company, maybe a little side deals with some. That being the case, any subdivision that wants to come online and gets authorization from the village would have to establish another transportation company. So we would have pipes under our road, alongside our town road, on infinitum, only because it's your transportation. And I understand that. It's a 3-mile stretch. There's a lot of.
Phil, if you look at the map, if I could just respond to that, we come from off-site, we go down Broadley Road, we have Broadley. So Broadley on the one side, right, if you're going down the road to the left, to the east, they're proposing 165 acre conservation. They're also proposing a rather large solar farm. So the majority of that land is going to be developed or not. The west side of Broadley Road, they're proposing 6-lot subdivision, single families for none, recent capital for them. They're going well and septic. The other big pieces of land that we're referring to is the Colt Farm, which is under agricultural, 78 acres of open space A, that's part of the heritage, which is under conservation easement,
Right.
and 42 acres dedicated, the project dedicated to the town is park. So those big pieces are really already spoken for.
Right, but not all the pieces. This is a 3-mile stretch on both sides of the road. So you're talking about 6 miles. I don't know every parcel of property. We could look at it, but there are parcels that can support subdivisions along that whole 6-mile stretch, 3 miles each side. So I'm just telling you where I'm at, okay?
But
So I'm going to tell you where I'm at, and I'm going to listen to anything new, and then we'll go on from there. I'm only one person on this board, so you ask for questions, I'm giving you my question.
If I could just give you a little idea as to how they got back there, I requested it. I requested the work session because I was fearful of a package system that we'd be stuck with. So I wanted an alternative, I put all the consultants in, and this would be sitting there, just.
No,
give me
I
clarity.
honestly, to me, it doesn't matter who asks for it. I'm just reviewing something that reviewed. And by the way, yeah, if the package plant is deeded over to the town, we have to run the package plant, but in a 3-mile stretch in the transportation system, if anything happens in the pipeline, we are going to be responsible for that whole pipeline, of course. And at that particular point, I think there are going to be a lot of issues with this pipeline, and that we're going to be responsible for the whole 3-mile stretch. So it's a matter of what do we fix, what are we responsible for? If it's the package plan, then you have the residents over there that are responsible. But I just jotted down a couple of things quickly.
if
And
I could
then-
just, in terms of maintenance and enforcement, I mean, you've got, you have several force mains already in town. Legoland has one. This kitchen has one.
And all those properties are contiguous to the village, except Amy's, which goes to the town, we don't, to the Middletown. Yeah, the other ones are contiguous to the village, so this one is 3 miles away. We have a different situation, but anyway. So what we're looking at is if we want to widen the town roads, if there's more traffic or what we want to do, anything that we do, we're going to have to dig up that pipe or do something with that pipe. So there are issues that we're going to have to look at going down the road. If we develop the way we would like to in the town, that thing is always going to be there. And it's going to be in that one spot. And we're always going to have to address either moving it, stopping it, reconnecting, whatever. So that's a thing. I know we had an odor situation because of the way it comes down. There could be odors in the pipeline. And I think the gases that go through the pipeline at different times. I'm pulling this all here from 9 years of memory. So that, and then at the time I understand the cost issue for developing that just has to be figured into the development. I mean, we can't get involved in the profit building, non-profit. But anyway, at that time, we thought that the plant, in order to recharge, and I know you addressed recharging, however, it's a very important issue to recharging aquifers. We addressed all that 9 years ago. And once again, I was interested in what may have changed to move me, or at least let us look at things differently. We're just looking at the same thing the same way. And it's really, well, you guys made the wrong decision at that time. Maybe you'll change and make the right decision this time with no change. That's how I view this. Could be wrong, and I'm only one person. And I might have to look at it a little deeper. I have no problem with that. But I just want to tell you where I stand and what I remember. So, anybody else can ask questions?
I do. Because I remember the two riggers were sitting on that side of the room
Yeah.
when we had the meeting. And you didn't say a word, not one word. What we said, we were very, very much concerned about recharge. We were hearing all kinds of things about the county, south and east of us, where they had concerns about water. It was so involved early on that we had Shore Palma do an overview of the town of Goshen, our water resources. We have 3 aquifers. One is very, very poor. One is not real robust, and one's okay. And at that time, we were having a lot of growth. And we were concerned about water. And we looked, and by the way, we've been trucking water since I was the supervisor for 16 years and 3 years before that. We truck water, a lot of water in the Hamiltonian Park and Arcadia Hills because we run out of water, even when it rains out. Water is an issue. And at that time, we saw growth in Orange County as being big and also in Goshen. In fact, today we have over, I think it's $1.1 billion worth of growth that's either being planned or being built. That's after Legoland, which is $500,000, and what we've already spent on Amy's Kitchen and Science of the Soul. The fact is, there's an incredible amount of growth coming to Orange County. We built 500 homes in 15 years in the town of Goshen. Almost all of them are well and septic. They're not like this, you know. Mr. Feeney has built 2 subdivisions on Houston Road, and then you got Woodland Estates, and go on and on and on. It's well and septic, which you got where you pull the water out, you put the sewage right back in, you recharge it. So we were a lot of discussion then in 2013 about recharge, not about the line. Well, the one problem we had with the line, which came either from Dennis Lindsay or Sean, was it goes up and down the hills and you get air and you've got to vent it. And what does it smell like? You know, I mean, because this line's going to be busy at night and it's going to be busy in the morning. But when 105 homes, people are going for the day, school or working or whatever, you don't use the sewers as much. All that was talked about ad nauseum. We talked about this for 2 or 3 weeks. We actually had an engineer from the city come up here and talk to us about Yankee Stadium. They built there a sewer plant, small package plant, and they put the right in the ground. It doesn't go in a stream and go away. It's recharged right there. And they talked to us about this. And said, well, that's a pretty good thing for us, maybe Goshen, because we're going to be facing incredible water shortages in time. And just go to the Orange County Partnerships and see what they're building and look in the town of Goshen. When I say we're 1.1 billion, that's before RDM, warehouse, and all the other things coming in. Okay. A lot is coming here, and two things, traffic and utilization of water. Okay. And we're not robust. So we, as a board said, and it was unanimous, we said after all the discussions, we need to be looking at recharge. We don't want to create another Hamiltonian Park. we don't want to create another Arcadia Hills because they're failing on a continuum. I mean, 2 years ago, I can't remember how many truckloads of water we had to bring into Arcadia Hills. It's just the way it is. Okay. And so we spent 2 or 3 weeks on talking about this. And I thought, be very candid with you, we said there were 2 things we asked you to do. Build a package plant where you recharge right into the soil. The other one was, we want you to build a water tank adjacent to the water tank in Stonehenge with a pipe in between, so that if you need more water, we can go one side or the other. Okay. And so the town board has heard nothing. I heard nothing about this until this meeting. I wasn't invited to the meeting where you all discussed it. Okay. And I'm the co-chair of water. I wasn't there. And I could have put a lot of input in as to what was discussed 9 years ago. And so I want to hear a lot more too. And I didn't know that the planning board was doing all of these things. Okay. I thought this had been dead. I didn't know it was being even, I mean, 9 years is a long time. And so I heard about it this week.
Yeah.
And so did Phil. And I think it took us a little bit short. And I'm not so sure that this is what I expected.
And
Okay.
I'll just-
And one last thing, but I know it was either Sean or Dennis Lindsay was talking about the length of that line with some major concern, or whatever that's worth. Okay, I'm done, Phil.
You mentioned the fire company too, when you were talking about the water towers at the fire company, that they wanted to make sure that there was enough water, and the reason you tie into Stonehenge is if they ran short, if they had a fire out there. So I know the fire company is involved. The one thing I remember, and maybe I don't remember it correctly, is as far as a sewer. I can understand a regional sewer, not just a tertiary plant. I think we discussed if you had built a regional sewer where you could get other users to defray some of the cost or tie in. But I'm not sure if that was the subdivision we talked about. I'm pretty sure we did. That's something that I would be really interested in. If they had a regional sewer, not just a plain package plant for a subdivision. I like regional sewers because you can get other subdivisions to tie in and so on and so forth. So I'm not sure if we approached that or not. It's something that I had thought of as I was reading this. Now, and I just want to mention, Riga Brothers have been builders for as long as I can remember, and I know their quality. So this has nothing to do with the development. I know you have a great reputation, and I just wanted to get that. So I'm not just opposed to development, it's just more.
Sean, can you answer some of the concerns on the distance on the pipe we talked about in the work session?
Sure.
Were you included in those meetings, Sean, that they
Yes.
had?
I understand there were 2 meetings. I was included in one, which
Okay.
I heard before last. So, Doug, in response to what you had asked, whether it was Dennis Lindsay or myself, at the time, 2013, 2014, Dennis Lindsay was consulting with the town board, and I was consulting with the planning board, but Dennis and I were working together, so we knew what each other was doing. So the concern at the time was the length of the line and the time that the sewage would stay in the line. The planning board did an environmental review before they, as a condition of their approval, required the applicant to come to this board. And one of the planning board's conditions after the environmental review was that the applicant would make provisions for odor control. The concern was, and I've seen this in other municipalities, when the wastewater sits in the line for an extended period of time, it goes anaerobic and develops odors. So there's low cost means to take care of that. You can inject chemicals and things of that nature, and I think you were able to do that at that time. You asked about one other item. I think you asked about the profile. Okay, so your point was what Doug said. The route is not straight. It goes up. You got peaks and you got valleys, and similar to the Forest Main and Heritage, whenever you hit one of those peaks, the applicant would have to put in an air relief valve. So if air accumulates in the top of the peak, you don't you want to expel that air so you don't get binding of that force main. So they would put in a chamber, usually a manhole that has an air release valve. And when air accumulates at that location, that high point, that valve vents. The planning board did consider as part of their secret review photos from that, and that ties back into what we just discussed with the chemical treatment.
So I understand that the cost is about the same for the sewer treatment. This is what I understand, you had mentioned. It's just a matter of what we should do and not be cost prohibitive. And at that time, it was understood it was the same. It was the same cost. We built that transportation system or built the sewer system so you could recharge the aquifer for a right kick. And I think that was one of the bigger reasons why we said, you know what, if the cost is the same, we would just opt for you to build the sewer plant premises, and that subdivision would have to take care of that sewer. So, just adding that. But here we go.
So the package plant would be taken over by the town.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah, right.
So then we'd incur costs on that, eventually, repairs and.
No.
Well, no,
the
this,
sewer-
we would do it, but it would belong to the to that
Okay,
district.
so similar to.
Well, yeah, or like any other water sewer district.
All right. Can I just talk about that for a second?
Again, we came to this board, the technical review was done by the planning board consultants, the DEC, our professionals. And we were here to determine whether it was desirable for the town to extend the Ham Park district to make a town district, create a separate town district, or the alternative would be transportation corporation, whether it's a treatment plant or whether it's a pump station. So, and our suggestion was that you extend the district, the Ham district, for a whole host of reasons. We're going to need 5 new homes that don't pay any debt service, O&M, annual O&M costs. In that district, the pump station enforcement is significantly less to run annually than a wastewater treatment. And if you want to have catastrophic events, the failure of a plant is, as catastrophic as the failure of a pump station. It's the same amount of 42,000 gallons a day. It's going to go somewhere. With regards to recharge, we're proposing a surface discharge at the end of our site that's going to go directly into a stream. And so we're not putting it back into the ground. We never worked that alternative.
But that's not what we asked for.
This cannot accommodate. This site cannot accommodate. First of all, we're limited to 35,000 gallons a day.
Well, we didn't hear, but I mean, I'm sure we did not hear back on any of this for 9 years. You might have been dealing with Sean and some others. We, the town board, which requested 2 things, thinking that when you build it, it was going to be this, to include bringing someone in from another engineering company to come in and share with us what they did at Yankee Stadium and building value. Can it be done?
This is the first time we've heard Yankee Stadium, honestly.
I'm talking about what the board was talking about.
And I'm saying it's the first time we've heard about the Yankee Stadium concept in ground discharge.
Okay.
Our site, these soils are not, appropriate for in-ground discharge. That's why we're going to the surface water discharge, and it's going to go right to the stream. Out it goes.
I think one of the things that upsets me the most, the town board spent at least 2 or 3 weeks on this. And haven't heard until this week, right now, what the planning board and everybody else has been doing, which is a real problem. Okay? Because we were so dedicated to focusing on recharge. Now, one of the other things that I would put out on the table, why don't we hook the line up to Hamiltonian Park? But I don't know about the sewer line that we just put in from Heritage and all of it, and Hamiltonian Park can go on up the hill, okay? So that we could expand Hamiltonian Park to be, and the 3 that are going to be in there, more houses. You can share the cost of rebuilding what we have to rebuild going forward. But there was just, no one came back to talk to us.
And the only thing, you had 2 meetings and nothing new has been presented. What was the discussion at these meetings?
we were talking about the requirement of us taking over the package treatment facility, and did we want to do that?
That would be,
The consensus of opinion was, we're not capable of handling that.
well, whose consensus of opinion? Board is not heard anything.
Well,
So-
unfortunately, Dominic's not here.
No, Dominic's the wrong one.
No, see, he's not, what I'm
That-
saying is the consensus of opinion should be from this board,
Yes.
and not from the people that work for the town.
Well,
We don't understand.
We utilize our consultants to educate us. That's the
Us.
purpose.
Us.
Right, right. Well, unfortunately, I can't have
Us.
everybody sitting at a work session because that's the law. I would love to have everybody there and hash it out.
I understand, but I didn't know anything about any work session either.
Neither.
So I mean, I'm not, I don't want to get into any kind of context. What I'm saying is, I'm not sure what new they discussed. We would have taken over the package plant 9 years ago. Nothing has changed,
So, sure.
other than the supervisor went out to them. Other than nothing has changed.
So let me correct me. Let me just see if I understand what you're saying. You were saying 9 years ago when this was approved, it was your intention from day one to take over the sewer treatment plant and run it?
That's correct. That's
We had to,
correct.
they were dedicated to us. And once again, it's the subdivision that pays for it.
Yeah.
It's a new sewer plant, so there should be no problems taking this thing over if it's built properly. You should be able to go 50 years without any problem.
What did Dominic say was, you thought was the cost of maintaining it chemically?
I don't recall the cost from Dominic.
That's once again a subdivision thing, it has nothing to do with the board.
Well, no, that discussion was really the annual O&M costs. Because in the previous analysis, it was $75,000 a year to run the plant versus $5,000 a year.
Yeah, but then they have to pay the village for the sewer and so on and so forth, because they have to pay for treatment, so.
Right. And
I'm not
and
sure
again,
what-
if you look at it, that's a good point for
Yeah.
which I didn't think of. Because
Yeah,
there's a debt service that
course.
the village carries,
I'm carrying it.
that you're
I
carrying.
live in the village.
I'm carrying.
Yeah.
As well as the residents that live in Hamiltonian Park, Arcadia Hills, and the Heritage. Those are people are also carrying that.
Yeah.
service.
Absolutely.
So if we go to the village, the economic scale, I mean, we would be participating in that debt service as well. It is a benefit to much more than just the readers. It's all the existing residents.
No,
And
these people, just for the hookup, and not only the hookup, but just for maintaining the service, there would be a cost. Maintaining the Service from the
Sure.
village.
In the
We bill it
district,
every month, and that's $75,000 for own maintenance. I'm not sure how much it would translate, but what I'm saying to you is, you got to do an analysis on the whole thing. You just can't cherry pick a couple of items.
oh,
and
we
say,
did.
No, I know, but we did. Now I'm bringing up things that,
With Dennis Lindsay and I spent probably a couple of months going through this back and forth, with a big spreadsheet comparing the
in
alternatives.
2013,
2013.
and after all that, the decision was made, because of no additional cost to the developer, the decision was made after all of that, that we would have the sewer plant built, or regional sewer built on your site.
We as a
After
private
all of
developer, we don't have the authority to build regional.
Well, we
regional
might be able to talk about that. See how
The regional sewer plant is in the village of Goshen. We have a regional sewer.
Yeah,
Trying to get into.
yeah, we have a
So
regional
that's
sewer plant.
Well, you can create a new one. You can have two more subdivisions out there
There are
and
many
use yours.
subdivisions that would be out there. We talked about regional sewer plants even on the other side of
But
17.
part of your
30 years
concerns
ago.
is, part of your concerns is growth. We were just talking about somebody to tap into this thing, along which I
Yeah, right,
respectfully disagree with,
right,
on the land that's available along Old
Right.
Chestnut Road.
yes.
But if you put a plant out there, that can be easily expanded, easily
But
expanded.
you could still have a subdivision. If you had a subdivision, they can't tap into it.
No.
So they would have to either build a sewer plant or wells. So if you had a regional sewer plant, any other properties that might be developed could go into your regional sewer plant. I'm not, listen, I'm just throwing things out. I'm not gonna, I'm not being argumentative or anything like that. I'm just saying, in my mind, I like the regional sewer plant, because then that would solve most of our problem.
But
Subdivision.
as a private developer, they
Yeah.
don't have the authority to create a regional plan. They can get permitted for 42,000 gallons a day for the surface discharge by the department. And the department doesn't issue permits to promote growth.
Well,
You're gonna get a permit
Which department are you talking about?
DEC, right? regulates.
Are you saying that they can't build a legal plant at the other subdivision?
If there was an active subdivision, then they could
Well-
partner up with them, yeah, but there is no.
Well, I think if we're gonna build 2 or 3 more, people are coming, folks. They'll have other subdivisions out in that particular area. And if they wanted to hook in, that would be, then we'd start the discussion with the DEC. That's all.
This is all new to me.
So, quick question,
Yes.
what is the regional sewer plant? Where do they discharge? They discharge in
They
stream
would
also?
discharge it
Or river?
wherever they would have discharge, I don't know, that tertiary plant.
Well, but to see what we're talking about, Rick, and this is a change.
Yeah.
Hamiltonian Park and Arcadia Hills, you hundreds and hundreds of homes with wells that we pump the water out of the land, go in the tank, go to
Yeah.
those homes. It goes to the village, processed, and it goes to the Wallkill River.
Right.
And we lose the water. I'm telling you, who really was big into this was Orange County Planning at the time, 9 years ago. They were encouraging this kind of thing because they look at the growth of Orange County and municipalities, et cetera. And water is going to become an issue. It's going to be short.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Please.
So, first of all, I apologize. If 9 years ago, Ian and I did not speak directly to the board. We sat here in the room and we allowed our representative to speak. That was certainly not
State your name, I'm sorry.
Stephen Rieger.
That's okay.
That was certainly not intended as a slight.
No,
No, it wasn't. I'm just saying we were going
And
back
for
and
9
forth.
years, you've been remembering this, so
Yes.
and obviously it made an impact on your impression.
but
But
it wasn't.
we didn't intend that as a slight in any way. That was
I didn't take it as a slight.
I didn't remember 9 years later that I hadn't spoken at the meeting, but, Steve does a good job, and so
Yeah.
we rely on him.
It's not-
The reason why I said that is because we talked about the board, all of this, bantering it back and forth. And it was pretty profound. We talked about the growth of Orange County. We talked about these things. And you're just a little piece of it at this time in history. Okay. And so we were changing our mindset as a board to start requiring recharge where the water's been taken. So
So the difference between Ham Park and Arcadia Hills and Youngs Grove is that Youngs Grove is a creation of your present zoning as opposed to the zoning from the past. So we have 354 acres and 290 acres. My numbers may be slightly off, but they're not off by much because I haven't reviewed the numbers recently. We have about 290 acres of open space. And so we have a huge area of undeveloped land. So where recharge is possible. And our development is tightly clustered in the center of the property so that we have no impact on neighbors. And it leaves a huge area for recharging. And a calculation was done about the amount of water that we would be sending away to 42,000 gallons a day, which is probably actually a lot less because the numbers are conservative. And the amount of rain that comes down on that property, and it was a minute percentage,
1%.
1%. So in any event, it was a very small number. So it's different than Hamiltonian Park and Arcadia Hills. Also, the amount of water usage per unit is less because of all the modern tools. And so, and the third thing is that we, because of water issues in other parts of the town, we were forced to do extensive testing. We developed wells, we did extensive testing. We have many times more water than we need. So it's not the same. So, and so we ask you to consider that a lesson learned in one set of facts may not be as applicable in a different set of facts. So I think that there's a difference. So recharge is something which I think can be analyzed and dealt with on a scientific level, not on a political level. And so if you'd like to reconsider that, then we'd appreciate that. The other thing is that when the supervisor called us in to talk about our proposal to do the package plan, which is where we were, your consultant, the JCO that operates your sewage facilities, Dominic has a lot of experience. He has more experience than any of us in the room do, even more than Sean has, because Sean's experience is in design and review, and Dominic operates. I'm trying to Sean if I'm wrong, but and Dominic felt, I don't want to speak for him, but he's a very convincing guy. He seems to very much know what he's doing, and he articulated reasons better than I can as to why the force main is preferable. And so that's what's different, is that maybe we have more and better information. Our proposal is not different, but the information that we have is. And so things do change. Background information changes, not the application in itself per se. So we didn't intend to keep anybody from knowing about this. We're coming before the board, it's a public meeting. We worked at this with the supervisor and with Dominic and other consultants to flesh out the idea, and we're here presenting it. So the gentleman seemed offended.
I am.
We didn't. I certainly none of us. Nobody that I'm aware of intended to in any way offend you.
I'm offended, and I'll tell you why. I wasn't invited to either meeting if there were two meetings. Number one, Dominic works for JCO as an operator. Okay. And we had discussions that were way above his head back in 2013. Okay. Now, I came out of the chemical industry where we had lots of use of water and all these things, and worked way up in the corporation. Okay. I also was in the Corps of Engineers for several years in the Army. So I know about these things. I know what you're dealing with. What I'm sharing is that we made a decision back in 2013 of looking at the entire county and water, not just your subdivision, and how we were going to change our mindset about recharge and ensure that it was done going forward where you didn't use well and septic. That's all it was.
Okay.
And then we didn't hear from anybody until this meeting. And then I find out there are a couple of other meetings, and I wasn't invited to those meetings. And yet Dominic was, and you listen to him, and he's worked for us for a year. He's a young man. He doesn't know a whole lot about a whole lot of things. He knows how to operate. He may have an opinion, but he's not a scientist. And so I resent it. Be very candid.
Doug, we had this conversation. I told you I took full blame for that.
No, I'm talking about the Dominic saying.
I took full blame for not inviting him.
No. So anyway.
There's just no reason to be hostile about it.
So Steve, let me ask you.
Before you do that, can I just go back to the charge issue? It seems
Yeah,
to be a big
sure.
Short department, the town hired short department back in the day to do a
Right.
townwide water study. It was a 100% consumptive study. It didn't take into consideration the septic system and recharging the ground. But you developed a zoning code, based on that. And the zoning code basically allows, if you want to do a major subdivision, that you have to do an open development. 50% open space within. As Steve indicated, we're at 82% of the entire 354 acres is open space. That 290 some acres recharges our aquifer 5 times daily of what we would use in our 42,000 gallons a day. So your zoning is working. It proves that. So it proves that land, that 290 acres is going to be under conservation, is going to never be developed. And we're recharging the aquifer 5 times greater than what we're consuming. So the zoning works, and that's why your planning board and your experts determined, found findings that the insignificant transfer of water out of one basin to another was insignificant and not deemed environmental impact. Because our site recharges such a great volume of water. And by the way, our water, we have 163 gallons a minute, 3 wells. We use 42,000 gallons a day. That's 29 gallons a minute. So double that for our peak, which happens a couple hours a day. We're not Hamiltonian Park. We're not Arcadia Hills. We've proven that we have more than enough water that we need, and we know that our site, recharges 5 times what our daily consumption is. So we can't really compare. But our model is what your zoning wants, and that's what that's it.
So just let me get some clarification on the expanding the Hamiltonian district versus what? We're expanding the Hamiltonian district, so you could run your sewer line into the Hamiltonian district, or expanding the district to encompass your subdivision, which would make it one huge district, which means anybody that wants to build in that district would have the absolute right to plug into the lines and what become village sewer. So I need to understand.
Okay, so during the planning board process, we have to evaluate alternatives, alternative layouts, alternative technologies, and in this case, alternatives in waste.
Right.
So, and whether it's pump station or a package plant, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, somebody has to own and operate those facilities, whether it's a plant or whether it's a pump station. We suggested, and I think it was the preferred plan of the preferred alternative planning board, is that we establish a town district. Now, you can either form a new district, Elms Grove District 1, or you can expand an existing district, which you've done in the past.
We did it
for the areas.
for
That's what we suggested, that we expand Ham Park District to include Elms Grove. So, and the only people that would be eligible to tie into the expansion of that district is the 105 homes in Elms Grove.
So Steve, so I'm not sure I understand. So the physical area of the district would then include Ham Park and Youngs Grove and no other
And
land in
Heritage.
between.
No one got land in between, that's a real problem. Expanding the district just to run down a pipeline or something. That's what-
No, you're putting those residents, the houses, right? The pipeline is the
Yeah.
pipeline. Nobody's eligible to tie it, right? That
Right.
is constructed and implemented and specific for Youngs Grove, right? It's going to be sized, the diameter of the pipe is going to be sized for 40,000 gallons a day. The pump station in Butler is going to be designed for 40,000 gallons a day. So there's no room for anybody that's in that pipe. If they want to dig it up, and build a new one, or run a parallel one, then that's up to them. But that again is regulated by the town board and the planning.
Just want to understand, if you expand the district to include them, that's one district. That district's tied into the village sewer.
Correct.
But that all goes into the village sewer. So there's no gallonage restriction other than what the village restricts for that district. So if other people want to tie into that district, you would have to have a district that we have now and just go up and then would encompass your little subdivision. Is that correct?
Well,
No,
no,
the district itself.
no, the
Well,
district
the
itself
size
is
of
going
the
to
pipe.
be Youngs, 354 acres of Youngs Grove. That would be.
Right, and it
That's
would be connected as part of the district, because it has to be one district
Correct.
by a pipe. That would be part of your district, so you'd probably have 2 miles of it.
It doesn't even have to be a pipe.
Or whatever, but you have to have something to carry the sewer.
No, we would have force main. We would have a force main which would follow the route that was laid
Right.
out. But the district could then include not only the people who live in Ham Park, but also the people who live in Youngs Grove, so that the costs of operating the district are split by 105 more homeowners, which will help all the Ham Park people by sharing their costs with the costs of these new homes and with new systems, which have relatively very low costs.
Well, we do this, I mean, I think we all have, well, one thing we've got here is a lot of communication problems. Okay, 13 years, 9 years, or And all of a sudden, we're here tonight talking about these things without our discussion. Okay. And so, for example, we have Maplewood and we have Heritage. They're part of Hamiltonian Park. 75 homes of Heritage, and I think it's 68 houses from Maplewood. They're all going to Hamiltonian Park. There's developer agreements. Money came to pay for the water tank and all these other things, and so on and so on. And so it was, and yes, going forward with Hamiltonian Park, renewing their aging systems, they all pay for it equally. Those people that are coming into brand new stuff, they're still, but I think what we have here tonight is for all these years that the planning board and everybody else is doing things. And we were so emphatic as a town board, spending 2 or 3 weeks talking about this, that it's just a shocking, okay, shocking, and that we didn't have many updates on this, so we could weigh in on it. Now it's almost like Joe says, I don't want a package plan. Well, okay, he called a meeting, and now all of a sudden, we haven't discussed it as a board.
Well, the other thing that we have not approached yet is when Heritage came to us to tie into an existing system, they made a huge cash contribution.
Oh, yeah.
As will Maple. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars to tie into the infrastructure that was already built. We haven't really approached it. So there are a lot of things we have to talk about. Yes.
I would like to address both comments. So in terms of the planning board, this received conditional planning board approval in February of 2014. And part of the planning board's condition was the applicant has presented 2 options relative to wastewater. One was a plant and the other was a force main.
Right.
And the planning board recognized that they would have to come to you. And one of the planning board's conditions was that the applicant would have to petition you, which they did. They came to you in November of 2014, and that's
Right.
when you made a decision that you referred back to. So the planning board hasn't been doing anything of any substance. They've been extending the applicant's conditional approval, as they do with all applications, but they haven't made any decisions relative to the waste. They haven't discussed sewer other than the applicant's request to relocate the proposed sewer treatment plant on the property from where it was originally proposed out by Johnson towards the northerly side of the property. In terms of the economic contribution, that was the reason that Dennis Lindsay and Steve spent the entire summer before they appeared before you looking at the costs. In Heritage Estates, for example, you analyzed the cost savings to the developer for a connection to the Hamiltonian Park. And you then asked for a developer's agreement and you split those savings. In this particular case, I think because of the length of the force main, the cost of the plant and the cost of the force main are essentially the same. So the applicant came to you and said, well, there's really no cost savings for us in any one, by installing the force main. So there really, I don't think at that time was any discussion of a contribution.
Well, there's
Just let me
two.
finish my thought.
Okay.
Yeah. The fact still remains that they're hooking into established systems. So maybe the cost of the development would be the same, but they are hooking into a system that, because of additional use, will probably cause additional problems for Hamiltonian Park people. Although the base would be bigger, I understand, because Young's Grove people would be paying part of that. But the cash contribution is only to offset the contribution that had been made to all people in Hamiltonian Park and Heritage Estates, by the way. So we hadn't talked about it.
But we also have a local law that says there's a hookup fee for water and there's a hookup fee for sewer. So I would imagine that we would have to charge the hookup for sewer.
Oh, absolutely.
But if the
I'm sure they know that.
if the developer's agreement is a break even,
So Sean, I have some questions. I think listening to Doug and Phil, everybody's basing this on the assessment that Jordan Palmer made and recharging it. And Steve made a really good point on that. Could I ask you to comment on his point of recharging?
Yeah, so the Shorter Promise study was the underpinnings of your current zoning code, which was adopted in 2009.
Mhm.
And that study indicated that the town had some significant water problems. And because of that, the zoning that the town adopted, as Steve indicated, placed a large emphasis on setting aside open space, typical open space subdivisions required to set aside at least 50% of the land. And one of the primary purposes of that was recharge, as Steve has described to you. In terms of the actual numbers, I haven't looked at the numbers from this subdivision, but as Mr. Reader said, there's considerably more than 50% of the land is set aside as open space. I don't know the particular characteristics of the ability of that soil to accept recharge. I think you may have looked at that at one time, I just don't recall it.
That's an afterthought. The open space had nothing to do with recharging. We didn't do that specifically for recharging. We did that for open space because we were buying open space. We did that for open space so that we would have recreation facilities or whatever.
But I guess
So-
recharge is a byproduct of that.
It's a byproduct, right,
Byproduct,
exactly, but that's, we, as Sean may have thought that we rezoned that with open space so that we'd be able to recharge. And that wasn't even a consideration. of open
My
space.
recollection,
That just happened to be a byproduct.
my recollection was it was a recommendation of Short Palm, and I
Might
just
have been a
presumed that it was
recommendation.
incorporated that way because of that. So
But this board did not do that.
Even your commercial zones require green space. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Highway, commercial,
Yes.
highway, and that's all because of the Short Palm report and
No,
the zoning code that you developed.
no, we didn't develop the zoning code based on recharging. Just tell me.
I was involved.
So was I. And that was not the major consideration. We didn't say, you know what, we need open space so that it can recharge these subdivisions. It just wasn't it.
We were spending millions
We
of
were
dollars
spending
with the
millions of
county
dollars
buying open space.
farmland for open space. And we came up and said, you know what, developers can do it.
One more point.
But that addressed recharge issue.
Right? It was but it wasn't a major factor. for
yes, Mr.
our
Supervisor.
rezoning.
One more point to Phil's concern about anybody tapping into the line. If it's sized for 42,000 gallons, will anybody be able to tap into it if that's the excuse? Well, that's the reason we're saying no.
It is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
So the applicant intends to install a line that is right size just for their use.
Right.
However, in doing so, and I think town attorney can opine on this, you are setting some sort of precedent as to if there's some other development and they appear before you and they want to force main, are you also going to allow that force main right away? I can't comment on that. That's
That's
a
what I
policy
brought up.
decision, that's a legal decision. But in terms of the technical side, yes, they absolutely can design a force main
Yeah,
that is sized for their flow.
for as many subdivisions as they want.
No, no,
And the
for
what I'm
their
saying
flow.
is the closer they can get, they can do transportation systems. We set a precedent. That was one of the things I brought up in the first thing. I brought up in my.
By
bullet
example,
points.
you have Hamiltonian Park, that force main goes up Old Chester, it makes a tie-in. And Heritage excavated to tie into Ham Park's force main, but decided not to tie in because of the condition of that line, which made sense.
Right,
They have another line. So right now, right when you get towards the cemetery, you have two lines to tie in. Presume this would be a third line because Heritage line was also sized for their flow. So this would then be a third line in that same right.
they're not a transportation.
They're part of the Hamiltonian Park
Sewer district,
district, yes.
the district, not.
So
Yeah.
the Transportation Corporation is the administrative body that owns and operates the physical works, sewer, water. It's the sewer, it's akin to a town district, but it's going to be a private corporation, privately owned.
Right.
Sewer is governed under transportation law in the state of New York. The water system would be regulated by the Public Service Commission in the DEC. And it would be owned and operated privately. So but it's essentially, it's either a transportation corporation or a district. That's it.
Well, one of the things that I'm concluding, I think we can go round and round and round. Okay. January, February, almost 3/4 of the way through March. And I've not been at a meeting on water and sewer, and I resent it. Okay. Particularly since I'm co-chair of water and sewer, and I had 16 years of experience leading up to this point.
I've noted, you said it 3 times.
I know, I want to say it again, because it's really burning my butt. Okay, I'm sharing that. Okay? I know a lot of things and things that are going by, and so I think communication between the planning board and the town board and everybody else is very, very important going forward, so that we don't just surprise, surprise. Okay, and so that's what I've learned from this,
I don't have any.
I'm fine too.
And Doug,
I'd like to
listen,
look at
we didn't,
Yeah,
that
no,
was
I'm
not the intention of the readers
Yeah.
to.
No, I understand, you were asked to come.
So, but, we're here because we want to initiate dialogue with the town board.
Yeah.
These gentlemen have owned this land for a long time. These are
Yes.
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes.
We want to move forward. There's a demand for housing. There's, we need housing in this town.
Yes, we do.
We need quality housing, which
Yeah.
they're proposing. And we're here to talk to you about a critical point in this project, which is sewage.
I'm just curious.
We're here to have this.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
And there's no way to move forward without town board
Yeah.
consensus.
Right.
I'm
So-
just curious as to why you haven't done anything in 9 years. You haven't built anything, you got all your approvals and everything.
That's a very good question,
Yeah,
but so this subdivision is very expensive to develop because of because of water and sewer, principally because of the water and sewer systems that are required.
right.
And so for a long time, the market wasn't there for it. We needed more velocity, meaning more houses sold per year than we felt we could do. And we need higher prices because we would have so much money into the site development that it wasn't economic. And so that's the principal reason. Now, I don't know whether the economics work or not because, I did a year ago, I thought that the time was right.
Yeah.
But this year, we've seen a hemorrhage of cost increases.
Yeah,
And so I don't even know what it costs. We build houses, I don't even know what it costs to build a house because we get price increases from our suppliers every week.
right.
And so, but we believe that there's a good chance that the time is right if we can find a way to build the right sewer system and the right water system and then bring this to market. That's
Well, you have an approval already with the sewer district because that was, right? That was well determined already. So if you wanted to build, you could start tomorrow. I think
Yes, the applicant received a conditional.
they got conditional approval, so you could start your building tomorrow.
Not,
But
gotta go to board.
not exactly, they have to get
Well,
outside
well,
agency approvals. and
well, when I say that, I mean,
Yeah.
they're past, they're through everything now, it's conditional approval. You just have to do a little punch list, whatever, I think, or
It's a
whatever.
little more than that, but yeah,
Okay,
they're
well-
closer, they're nearer to the finish line than they are the starting line.
Yeah, but they stopped 9 years ago, and we just doing this. I know 500 houses have been built since, all over the town. But that's a decision you make, not me.
I think in the interest of trying for everybody to figure this out, since like we've had them involved in the meetings, and I apologize again, but confused with not getting you involved in the meeting. I think we should table this, let us talk about it, and then I'll get back to you, and then we'll get back on the agenda again to discuss it. That works for me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks.
We probably want to discuss it with Sean too some more. I just want to make sure there's enough escrow to take care of any legal issues that we have. Okay. How much?
Yeah, we have some.
No, he didn't pay the escrows.
All right, item number 2.
Item number 2.
Excuse me? You want me to turn my microphone? I'm not loud enough. I'm echoing in my ears with these hearing aids. and I'm not loud enough for you.
Not for me, Joe, it's for the public.
Okay. I'm not holding.
One is like.
Testing,
Winning.
No. Neil, you're more than welcome to stay. I only asked you to come for this, but
I think you have one more thing, Rick.
yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, item number 2. See if we can buzz through these quick. Review and approve the request for Urbanski Solar for a 6-month extension of the special use permit granted on June 11, 2020. Please see attached letter from Genevieve Trigg Esquire.
We're good with that. Can I make a motion before we?
Can I just
Okay.
include in the motion just the end date of that, but no any confusion with 6 months would be, so we can call it December 11th, 2022.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
Grant the extension.
I do have a question.
Okay.
When do they think they are going to complete this? Do you have any?
I think very soon. There was some delays relative to them getting panels.
Right,
because of
materials.
supply, yeah.
Right,
And
okay, fine.
they've actually had a flurry of activity this week.
Okay,
So I know Neil's been involved with it, Kelly Norton's been involved, and I've been involved, so they're looking to get everything wrapped up, start construction soon.
okay.
Bill
All
made
in
the
favor?
motion, I need a second.
Rick second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Well, on average, that's pretty good. If you take the two and
I
you
said
cut them in
that
half,
was
on
easy.
average,
Let's
we're
move
moving
on.
along.
All right. Review and discuss the proposal for grant consulting services with Delaware Engineer. Last meeting, we talked about using Delaware because there was literally no cost, only if they were successful. In working with Sean, they put together a proposal for us to build a comprehensive plan of all of the districts in order for them to start the process to try to get us the grants and financing that we need. They need to identify where the areas are that are in trouble. You have a proposal in front of you. It's roughly $25,000, but it creates a master plan. I think everybody has a copy of what they gave us from Monroe.
For discussion purposes, I'd like to make a motion that we approve them as our consultants for this project. For discussion.
Yep,
we get
sure.
second.
Second, all in favor?
Nope.
Aye.
Now we'll have the discussion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I just want to say.
me to leave?
No,
No, you need to be here.
No.
Like,
You have to send out for sandwiches, you know.
She'll leave.
Is there something-
That really wasn't a question, guys.
We're not replacing it, so.
It was absolutely.
Yeah, no.
No, I say, no. I
This is
asked
clearly,
that
we're gonna end
question.
up working with them on items, so, no, clearly you need to be here.
Maybe Sean.
The town attorney's trying to get me in trouble, so I just want to point
That's
that out.
right. So you may be here, you may not. So, no, but all I want to say is I think it's
Oh, poor
a
Mrs.
very good
Brady.
move.
She
We're gonna
knows.
have a comprehensive plan. We have 4 districts. We need to know what the hell is going on in all of those 4 districts. If you do, and I understand that they're just gonna deal with the district.
Just the district.
Sean will still be here.
As far as I know, unless there's any other agenda
No,
items.
it depends on the advice you're giving us here. Anyway.
Only recommendation for the board on that regard.
Yeah.
And I saw the proposal this afternoon, it's structured as a lump sum and includes all districts. I would just recommend discussing with the budget officer how she wants that divided, because if you work for multiple districts.
Well, that would have to be divided within the 4 districts, but you're talking about proportionately, the size of the district?
I don't know, I just know when I lump stuff together,
Yeah.
Christine yells at me.
Yes, that's a good question, Christine. Do we do it, and we split it in 4s?
No, I
No?
would do by.
Okay. Wow.
That's the way to do it, I
Yeah.
think.
I agree.
Could we talk about potentially not using any of the capital money in those districts and maybe using the ARPA money for the $25,000? Since we already approved $349 on Larch,
Right.
and now we're only spending $249 on, there's additional money in that we could allocate that to.
Yeah, they're not all sewer districts. There's water. Right? Stonehenge.
Well, now, we can
Correct.
use that money on
Yeah.
water or sewer, can we?
Right.
Yeah.
Then that's the point then.
Yeah.
It can be used in either one.
You can, okay, good. Yeah,
So
I think it's a great idea. Yeah, I told you, I thought it was a real great idea.
anything else on it or?
You want
Well, yeah,
more? What do you want
you know-
more? Are you kidding or what?
I'm trying to streamline this process.
The only thing I would have is
Yeah.
that we make sure that, if I finish talking,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the town attorney again is kind of in trouble.
Okay, well, he's working on it. Okay, as we bring more items online, okay, whatever they may be the one we just talked about. How does that impact the costs? Is this,
Relative to that?
yes,
Well, I guess I would assume it would be an add-on if we want to revisit it, correct?
You're talking about individual grant items or any other?
no, this is the cost of this is $25,000 some odd.
Adding to the comprehensive plan, I assume that's what you're talking
Yes,
Yeah, typically, if it's not within the four corners, if it's outside the scope, then it would be an additional cost,
Cost.
just like any other contract that you have.
okay, just that.
But it's got to be a limited cost because any new district we're bringing in is going to be a brand new district.
Yes.
And we should have maps, we should have everything for them. So it's a
Yeah.
matter of just sizing it and putting it in.
Well, what I was thinking more within a district is that there's something we come up with over the next 6 months. Oh, we got to look at that too. We're talking about, for example, Stonehenge putting a tank in.
Yeah.
Well, we got that in. Now it's in here. But what happens if something else, a chlorination system or whatever, you know?
I think as a basis of what they're using, it's the most recent Department of Health inspections. So every
Okay.
year, the Department of Health comes out, they walk around with your operators,
Yeah.
they do an inspection report. And they view, I actually provided them with that information. They use that as the basis of what they're gonna investigate.
Okay,
But this is a snapshot of where we are right now.
Yeah.
And we can't determine what the future will be. It's a moving target. Right now, we definitely need a snapshot. of
Yeah.
What the hell we're looking at.
Okay. very good.
I need the motion.
Motion,
Second.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
I missed that. Can we do that again? I'm sorry, Sean was talking to.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I know, I think I made the
Phil.
motion.
It's
Phil.
I think I did make the motion.
Yeah.
You did.
You did.
We made the motion originally.
Yeah.
I
Rick,
made
you
it
seconded.
and Rick seconded it.
Then it went to
That
discussion.
we, yeah, and then we had a
Right.
discussion and we just voted on it. Everybody said aye.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Hurry up, Joe.
All right, we're good. Hey, moving on.
I needed to ask him about Salesian, but we'll let him go.
I was going to say, I should have started that out.
I know, right?
Run down the hall
I
and get
I
him.
did speak with Ray about it.
Get him with himself.
I'm not gonna do that second.
You're really
It's
thinking.
one call 3 times already. Let him go.
Thanks, Larry.
Moving on. We're good. We approved it. Ready to go?
Yeah.
Are we good for utilizing the payment out of the ARPA?
That's it.
Based on what
Yeah.
Christine's telling us it's
Yeah.
legal, so we ought to do
Okay,
it.
Great. Item number 4, review and discuss proposal for grant. Well, we did that already. That was item 3. Item 4, review and approve hold harmless agreement for person clearing permit. Right?
Yeah, we did. it. We voted on it.
No?
No,
No, it was, we approved,
Money.
it was included in the packet when we approved the money portion.
But we
Right,
did
2 weeks
we did
ago.
The agreement.
Right.
That's, yeah, the agreement's been reviewed by myself,
No issues?
with no issues.
Oh, okay.
Standard hold
Comments,
harmless.
concerns?
No, no, I thought. no.
Motion?
Yeah, I make a motion. that we-
second.
No. All in favor?
Hold harmless agreement.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
You're my go-to motion
I
man.
see that.
Discuss and approve the resolution to accept the procurement policy for fiscal year 2022.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay. Item 6, review and approve Supervisor Betro to sign approval for facsimile signature for M&T Bank account. See it back. So this is for my stamp?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
use your stamp.
Can we use it on other banks?
No, no, those are just for the accounts at
We-
M&T Bank.
No, he wants to know if he can use it on his account.
No, 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 no. I don't want anybody signing my statement. But hell, can we, there are numerous banks that we sign for.
Right, and M&T is,
Is the only one that'll accept stamp signature?
no, they're requiring this form, the other banks.
We did a DocuSign on the other banks, right?
That's what I think.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
There must have been some other form they can sign.
They sent me, every bank sent me a DocuSign, I signed.
Right.
This is the only one that didn't send a DocuSign.
I'm trying to save your heat.
But they're,
Or we can
they're
stamp.
From getting
specifically
tired.
saying, is it okay to
See my
use,
signature?
they're saying, is it
Yeah.
specifically okay to use a
Stamp.
signature stamp on the checks as opposed
Okay.
to you handwriting?
Right,
But
that motion.
other banks probably have it
Second.
within the other people. Rick made the
I made the
motion.
motion.
Second? Doug, you want to second it?
Oh, I second it.
All in favor?
I know Rick seconded it.
Yeah.
No, I.
Opposed?
Oh, pardon me. Okay.
Discuss and pass a resolution to forward a copy of the 2021 Town of Goshen Justice Court audit by Nugent and Hostler, PC, dated March 11, 2022, to the Internal Control Liaison section of the New York State Unified Court System.
So moved.
Okay. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I do have a question about that. You know, the courts, a few years ago, there were some checks that were held in abeyance and so on. Did we ever figure that one out?
That was 16 years ago.
I know, but I don't think we resolved it. And I just wondered if it was part of the, I just wonder if it was part of this audit.
You know why he's bringing it up? Because we saw a bill from Rick Goldman for 2009, refreshing all his memories.
That's true.
Okay.
But this is the one that was a real hot item 3 or 4 years ago.
It was done.
It predates me.
Yeah.
So which means it's, I believe it's 10, 12 years ago. And I don't think it carries forward on the
No.
audits. It's been
Well,
reconciled as far as I know.
Yes.
But that was the question.
That-
Has it been
Yeah,
reconciled?
there was someone came in, either an independent person, went through the records, and reconciled it. I believe the money was paid back or whatever, however it was done. It was-
Okay,
So, but if you want me to confirm that for the
You're
next
right.
meeting,
that would be good.
sure.
Because,
I mean, it can't hurt.
because it went by a couple of years and then all of a sudden I haven't seen it. So the lady who came in used to work as one of the clerks in that department. And,
I'll get an answer
yeah,
for you.
okay, very good.
Moving on. Number 8, information only. At George's request in the last meeting, Neil Holloran, building inspector, had submitted a letter of intent to retire no later than September 1st, 2022. The letter is attached. Okay. Information only, Sergeant James Boyd is retiring on 3/31/2022, which is next week. Yep. That's some time. Okay, review and approve.
But that, I've got to share about, this fellow is one of the finest policemen we've had in the town of Goshen's forever, I think.
Yeah, no, good guy.
And we got a letter of appreciation for him following our reorganization, where he was involved in investigating an accident, a couple of black children, and he talked to the mother and what followed up. He just did a wonderful job.
So with the resignation, I recommend that we send a letter of appreciation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. They are playing some type of quasi-retirement party, but we're not sure he's into it. If he is, we'll all be invited to it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be April 30th. We're gonna do something,
April 30th.
Talking about Neil or-
James. Neil's, we got a lot.
Neil, we haven't told.
Just let me know how much.
Number 10, review and approve the request from Police Chief James McDowell to promote Stanley Lipinski to Sergeant on April 11th, 2022. See the attached memo.
I'll make the motion in that regard.
Second.
Here's another fellow who,
Roll call on this
Oh,
one.
really?
Yeah, I think so.
this is another fellow who
Yeah.
has done an incredible job
Yeah.
at the town of Goshen Police
Yeah.
Department.
Just want to note he's a Burke Catholic grad also.
Is that Burke County?
Burke Catholic, yeah.
Okay, good.
What does it have?
What?
We were just throwing out stuff. I just thought.
His uncle was my drinking buddy back from the day. So
What do you got, Ricky?
Oh,
Everything?
I knew him too.
And let's not-
This is a live meeting, people are watching.
I was just gonna say.
Four.
you know,
We're having a good time.
Four people.
Or people.
Let's
Roll
not
call.
discuss our conflicts of interest. I.
I
Okay.
motion carried.
So moved. Okay, review and approve the replacement of promoted slot to the discretion of Police Chief McDowell. He needs to go out and replace Stanley as a patrolman. I had, just information purposes, I had Jem put together the cost analysis on replacing him. And because of the tiered system, we're replacing a tier 2 with a tier 7. There's a net cost savings of $38,047 by hiring a new full-time police officer to replace Stanley and Officer Lipinski, I should say. And there's also a $2,000 a year cost savings for Officer Lipinski taking Officer Boyd's, Sergeant Boyd's position.
You know, I'd like to comment.
Sure, yeah.
Back 10, 12 years ago, we had a problem. I was in my office. An officer came in, pulled the shades down, and relayed to me that we had some illegal activities going on in the police department. And so I went to the state to investigate, and they were too busy. So we got Nugent and Hausler, and sure enough, we had some illegal things going on in the police department. By the time we finished, it cost us $1.5 million to deal with this whole issue. It involved 3 officers that retired. Between the lawsuits, these were federal lawsuits, and disability, and went on for a year or whatever. And so the chief said to me then, he said, you know, if you have a part-time person and they're not doing things, you just don't use them. But when you try to discharge a full-time person, it's a different story. And so again, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And Phil was the one that got this thing started with us, because we changed chiefs, we did a lot of things. And so my preference is based on what our current chief said, you know, if you part-timers, it's not the money as much as it is, if you don't like them, you don't use them. But if you don't like a full-timer,
I think that's, if I don't want to interrupt you, but I think that's why he asked for it at his discretion when he wanted to do it, when he finds the right person for this job. So it's not somebody they're ready to promote tomorrow, not one of the part-timers they're ready.
I think you ought to come in and share it with us before we say vote on this. I just do.
Share what? He doesn't have any money.
I understand.
So then
That we haven't done.
let's make a motion to say that we give at his discretion with board approval of the person.
That's correct. That's fine.
We'd have to go with board approval.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, just so everybody's aware, I found out today, I had no idea. I apologize for not knowing this, but I did not know that our part-timers are eligible for overtime after their 20-hour shift.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we spent what, Mary?
25,000.
Well, there's an incredible cost savings with their benefits are 78%.
Mhm.
But anyway, it's not driven as much by money as it is continuity and control of who's working for you relative to, if you don't care for them, you don't use them.
So how do you want to handle this? You want to,
Just ask the police chief to come in. You don't need a motion.
I don't think we need a motion. I think having him come in and talk to us, we have a dialogue back and forth. What's he thinking about? And how do we protect ourselves?
That's
Right,
already,
okay.
that's already the protocol, right? That the
Yeah.
board would have to approve, so you don't, yeah. You don't.
No, that, you know, but I mean, what's on his mind? He,
Yeah.
you know, and
Make the case.
make the case, you know, okay.
You will.
And by the way, I love the chief. I
Yeah.
mean, there's no question, he's a good man.
Yes.
all right, so discuss and approve the appointment of Eileen Ippolito as temporary part-time clerk for the assessor's office at $28 per hour. That cost is not coming out of our budget, correct, Christine? That's a direct cost
I think we'll deduct it from our payment.
to the
Right.
county. So it's a zero cost for the town.
So moved.
Second.
Is that what we pay right now? Is that the going rate? That the county is paying
That's what-
$28 an hour?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it?
That's what she gets paid.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Review and approve the minutes of March 10th, 2022 town board meeting. Any questions on them?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, schedule the annual information.
Did we
meeting for
miss
water-
one up at number 5 at top? Discuss and approve resolution to accept procurement policy for
No.
fiscal year.
Yeah, we
No.
We did?
We did.
Okay, fine, okay, thank you.
You made the motion.
Schedule the,
Hey,
schedule the annual
Okay.
information meeting for the water sewer district for April 28th, 2022.
so moved.
Any problem with that? April 28th,
No?
No.
all in favor?
What,
No
second?
second,
That's our second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Discuss and approve a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay accounts payable check run on March 24th, 2022 in the amount of $328,552.18. Bill?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Discuss and approve a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay workers' comp claims in the amount of $2,050.62.
So moved. So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Approved year-to-date budget transfers requested by Budget Officer dated March 10th, 2022. Okay,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
A motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Right, I missed that. Bill moved.
I moved, Joe seconded,
Joe seconded.
but he didn't call for a vote.
all in favor?
Aye.
Time for